Hello and welcome. I'm Parmdeep. I'm a full-time property investor based in the Leicestershire area in the East Midlands. I do developments locally, I run a rental portfolio, and I also have a partnership in a letting agency locally. I love to share what I've learned in property, so alongside my local property business, I've also been running workshops and events since 2003, and I've educated well over 10,000 different people at different events all over the UK. And I've also written a best-selling course on finding below market value properties called Success Through Property. I'm joined on the call with my business partner, Mark. Are you there, Mark?
Hi Deep, thanks very much. My name is Mark Paul. Following a PhD in maths, I went into the city working in investment banking and wealth management space, focusing on systems, automation, processes as a business analyst. Alongside that, I started investing in property back in 2003. I actually did a let to buy on a flat I bought and grew from there. And now I work on various deals and projects with Deep. We've done various buy to sell deals, invested in a letting agency, and also I run my own rental portfolio.
Great. So do you want to talk about some of the finance techniques that we're using really successfully in our business?
Yeah, thanks, Deep. So what we're going to be talking about at the Underground Investors Summit is around the subject of raising private finance. So this is something both Deep and I use quite extensively in our business. It's even more important these days with some of the changes in the lending world with the introduction of the PRA regulations and so on. It's much harder to get financing. So having some investors that are willing to invest in your projects is something you should always be working on. So at the event, we're going to be talking about the whole life cycle of raising private finance. So we'll cover the steps that a typical investor goes through, the know, like, trust, invest model. We're going to talk about how you can find your own first investors and some of the techniques that work for us. How to put the investment together, how to structure it legally so it protects you and the investors. How to manage your investors, which is an important point once the project's actually underway, how to keep them updated, what sort of things you show them, how to keep them involved, because your aim, of course, is once they've invested in one project, is that they keep coming back and reinvesting in future projects. And we'll also talk a bit about how we've managed to do some no money down deals. It is still possible, and it's still possible with full disclosure to the lenders as well. So we'll be covering that. Anything you want to add, Deep?
No, I think that's fine. Do you want me to talk about some of the techniques we've been using that have worked really well?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Give a couple of examples.
Yeah, so I think the key thing that we've been really focusing on is the process of raising investment. I think when I was starting out, and for a lot of people just starting out, you think that, well, if I've got a good project and it make the numbers look good, all I need to do is find an investor and tell them. But that's not enough, and I'm sure if you're listening to this and you've tried that and then you've struggled to get investment, you've probably been wondering, well, what happened? What happened was you didn't really understand the process of raising investment. You've got to understand that investors need to form that trust with you first of all and understand what you're doing. And they like to start small and build up. So there is definitely a process. And the way we work is we go out, we network, we look for people who have just a general interest in property. We don't need to look for investors specifically. And what we do is we tell people about some of the projects we're doing. If you're not doing any projects, you can talk about projects you're looking at and send that out as an email or via social media to people that you're following or are following you. And what we do then is we invite people to come and have a look at some of the projects we're working on. So they can actually get a feel for the kind of projects, or even if you haven't got a project on the go, a project you might be just examining that you might want to buy. And so they get to know you a little bit, they get to see the project, they get to see what kind of figures, they get to see the area, all that kind of stuff is really, really important before somebody makes that commitment to want to go ahead and invest. So the format we always use is we always make sure there's more than one investor at any of those meetings that we have. That's not just from an efficiency point of view, but it also shows investors that they're not the only one that you're talking to. There's other people that are interested in potentially getting involved in your projects. So what we do is we have a project, we show people around, and then we always follow up with a lunch. And at that point, we only look for commitments to proceed. So there's no formal documents or anything signed at that point. It's just a piece of paper goes round, and the potential investors can sign that to say, I'm interested in lending some money potentially to this project or other projects, and they give that form back to us, and we will then ring them at a future date to kind of progress that. The other important thing about having investors come up to your particular locality to see the projects is it's a huge commitment for someone who's busy and they've got lots of other commitments. For them to spend that time to actually come all the way and have a look at your project, and the time as well that it takes to have that lunch and build that trust up, it's very important. It's a psychological commitment that's been made there, and we found that's really powerful, because if you don't have that commitment, it's kind of it's very difficult, you'll find, to get a solid commitment proposal funded if you haven't had some kind of commitment already in place with the investor. From there, we proceed to talk about figures, and we agree what kind of rate we're going to be going in at. So typically we understand the investors, and if they're quite sophisticated but they've got money and it's liquid, well, we don't mind paying a bit more to those guys, say up to 12%. Whereas if somebody is less sophisticated and they're happier with lower returns, we can go in at 8%, something like that, and that works really well for our business. So that's just some tips on how we've managed to create a process around raising private investor funding.
That's very good, Deep. Thanks for that. So please do come along to the event. It's the Underground Investors Summit. It's going to be on the 18th and 19th of November in London. In our talk, you'll walk away essentially with a full blueprint of how you can find, structure and manage your own investors and move forward on your own projects. For those that do attend the event, we'll be giving away the opportunity to come up and visit us in Leicester. We've actually recently invested in a letting agency. Again, that was actually funded by private investors, and we can tell you how we did that. Come and see our letting agency, have lunch. We'll take you around some of our deals. And you can walk away with our paperwork as well, the exact JV agreement we use successfully with our investors. So that's the Underground Investors Summit on the 18th and 19th of November. You can register at the link below, and we hope to see you there.
Great.
Thanks very much.
No worries. Oh, well, one last thing. If you do register on the link below, you get to download a bunch of case studies, right, Mike?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we, as part of this discovering your niche, we've put together a huge compilation of case studies. These are just normal people like you and I, doing their own thing, making good money. We've put together 7 case studies covering all sorts of different niches. Some of those have used private investor finance to get them over the line. Actually, there's one of our case studies in it too, which uses private investors on a new build development. So if you click on the link below, you'll get access to those case studies completely free. As our sort of gift to you, and within the case studies there will be the opportunity to find out how to register for some early bird discount tickets for the event itself.
Great, look forward to seeing you all there.
Thanks very much, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.